Good morning, everyone. As you can see, we are trying from a different position. That's really not working well. So we'll try from over here, see if this works. Apologies. We're in a new location, so we're trying to get everything to work. Okay, that seems to be hands-free. Not the best, but we can... There we go. Maybe that works. Okay, we'll try it from here for today. Let me see if I can do it one more place. That's a bit better. Okay. Right, so today's learning is dedicated in memory of Leah Bas Bible ben Yomin Akiva ben Shlomo Harab Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Tzipora Fekel Bas Reuven Baruch, Paul Kazmir Shalom ben Eleli ben Bas Bible for Moshe Shan Bas Yaakov Shmuel Kela Bela Bas Henech Yirmiyahu Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer Sar Malka Bas ben Yomin Shlomo Yechia ben Yeshua Levi, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Aryeh ben Shimon, as well as the yacht sites for today, which are Reina Bas Yitzchak Yisrael. Sorry, I think with this, yeah. David ben Avram Cohen, Malka Pesach Bas Moshe David Harris, Shmuel Yitzchak ben Moshe Aaron Her Cohen Cohen. Wish them all their families long life. We're continuing with the next of our Mishnayos. Okay, so let's just find our place. So in chapter 4, okay, let's just have a look. We did that one. Yeah, we're almost towards the end of it. There was Shimon. Yeah. Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya is one of the most tragic personalities and characters and rabbis of the Mishnah. He appears in the Mishnah and was undisputedly one of the great sages of his day. And yet, by the time he finds his way into the Gemara, into the Talmud, we find him receiving a different name, and that is the name of Acher, the other. And that's because of a story relating to him where he became, he went off the path of authentic Yiddishkeit because he saw a child going up a ladder to perform the mitzvah of Shiluach Haken, of shooing the mother bird, and the child fell. And after the child fell, then he couldn't take it. He felt that there was something wrong with Judaism. You know, how could something so horrible, something so problematic happen to a beautiful, innocent child? So it's a discussion for another time, and we've given Shirim before. Nonetheless, Elisha ben Avuya says, Halomed Yeled, ironically he speaks about a child, one who studies Torah as a child, Namahu Doime. What is it comparable to? So what is studying of a child like? Ledaya Kusuva Anir Chadash. It's like ink that is being written on blank paper. Okay? And somebody who learns, and we all know this, somebody who learns as they get older, Lamahu Doime, what is he comparable to? The Dayak Suva Oniyam Machuk. Okay? It's like writing on paper that's already inscribed, it's smudged paper. When you are, we all know that in the formative years of one's life, it is much easier to absorb. Have you ever wondered that? You know, we always say, make the most of your formative years. These are the years that you're like a sponge and you can absorb so much. Those are the years when we're, as Elisha ben Avuya says, that is the time you can absorb anything and everything far easier and far quicker because you've got a blank slate. But when a person becomes older, there's layers upon layers that are already there. What does that mean? So it's interesting that both, I was studying actually something in psychotherapy yesterday, and in the teenage years already, there becomes formed and molded in our minds certain concepts, certain views, certain dogmas when it comes to people and it comes to the world. And once in the teenage years, they become fixed, it's very, very hard for a teenager to change their mind, their perception, their views relating to a certain person or people, or relating to a philosophy and outlook towards the world. So the point is that although Elisha ben Avuya has made that statement, we all know of examples and exceptions where that is not the case, right? So although it's a rule of thumb that it is much easier to study, to absorb, to make changes, to grow when one is younger, that doesn't mean that it's impossible to do so when one is older. Take Exhibit A, Rebbe Kiva. Rebbe Kiva, we're all familiar with as one of the greatest sages in Israel, but perhaps one of the things we're not familiar with, and good morning to everyone that are joining us, to Rachel, David, Harry, Baruch, Ben David, Edwin, and Hannah so far. So one of the things we're not aware of is that Rebbe Kiva did not know an Aleph from a base until he was age 40. What happened at 40? He was a simple shepherd, didn't come from much, and he was wandering with a sheep in a field, and he came across some rocks, and he noticed that there was water that was dripping from above onto this rock, and he noticed that it had eroded, that it had made an impression on the rock. And he said if this water, right, if water can make an impression on something that's so dense, so solid as a rock, then surely it's not too late for the Torah to make an impression on me, even though I'm 40 years old. And that's the point. As we get older, we're like that rock. It's harder, it's more difficult, it may take more time to absorb new ideas, but that doesn't make it impossible. At whatever age, right, you can always learn. And they always say in English, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that's not a Jewish idea. It may be more difficult, it may take more effort, but that's not to say that we cannot do it. And we all see people, that all of a sudden have made changes, be it in the way they conduct themselves as people, the way they learn, the way they interact, their outlook to life, their maturity, whatever it is, their character traits. So rather than just be frozen in time, I ask you, if you believe that, by the time you're an adult, you're not going to really change, right? Every day you're going to behave exactly the same. So what's the point in living the next day? You're not going to achieve anything. You're going to remain frozen in time. So although of course in a formative year, that is the critical time, that's the idyllic time, right, when you can achieve and accomplish so much so quickly, that's not to say it's to the exclusion of studying or growing when one is older. Okay, let's go on, and I think we've got time for one more Mishnah. Reb Yossi ben Yehuda, Ish Kfar HaBavli. So Reb Yossi ben Yehuda was of Kfar Bavli, the village of Bavli, okay? And he said as follows, Halomid min hakatanim, if a person is able to learn from children, lemahu doimeh, then what is he comparable to? To one who eats unripe grapes or drinks unfermented wine from his vat. But, he says, somebody, Halomid min hazakenim, lemahu doimeh, la'oichel anavim b'shulos, to a person who is eating from ripened grapes, and he's drinking matured wine, aged wine, good wine. Okay, this fits in very nicely with the previous Mishnah. Think about it. The previous Mishnah just said to us that when one is young, one's still absorbing, right? As much as you are absorbing when you are younger, it also means that you are in a process of change and flux, and therefore what you accept today, you may change tomorrow. Your views are changing. Your understanding is deepening. So therefore you're far from the finished product. But obviously if a person has spent their life growing, developing, working on themselves, maturing in all senses, then of course to learn from such a person, to hear ideas from such a people that are more mature, that are more established, more accomplished, then you're going to be able to absorb much more of the finished product. Okay, and we all know, what was it? Eleanor Roosevelt famously said, she said, life is too short not to learn from the mistakes of others. And that's also something, as a person, life experience has taught all of us. I know when I speak to, the people in JAX or people even older than JAX, and you speak to them, they have such a wealth of wisdom that you cannot find in books, just the experience of life, the experience of what they've endured, what they've had to go through. And, if you ever meet somebody who went through the Holocaust, it's what they have experienced and what you can gain and glean from them is absolutely priceless. We're going to stop there and we're going to continue now with the prayers. So let's do that. And the Psalm 23. So we'll start with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adonai Ramim Zachais Nishmais Le'abas Faivel Ben Yomen Akiva Ben Shlomo Ben Zion Ben Yitzchak Rav Yaakov Ben Ari Saxi Parapeg Elabas Ben Baruch Paul Kazmi Shalom Ben Eleli Ben Abbas Faivel from Moshe Shamos Yaakov Shmuel Caleb Ben Abbas Henech Yom Yochia Ben Moshe Eliezer Sarah Malka Bas Ben Yom Shlomo Chia Ben Yeshua Levi Avram Mordechai Ben Moshe Katna Ari Ben Shimon, as well as the yacht sites for today. David ben Avram Cohen, Malka Passat ben Moshe David Harris, Shmuel Yitzhak ben Moshe Aaron Cohen Cohen, Shalachul Yelaman Bagan, Aiden Taimanu Kosam, Lachin Balarachamim, Yasi Rain Besita Kanapav Yanamim, the Yisrobas Achim Sishmasam, Adonai Yunach Lasam, Bianuchu Beshalom, Amishkavam, Venomar, Amen. Lastly, before Shlema prayer for all those that are unwell, cannot afford to be complacent even at this stage. Misha Berach Abaseinu Rabbi Misrav Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarach Rapis Acholim Babu Shanu Mispalim Babu Ram Bizchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rachim Alehem Lachim Leposam Yishlach Lim Fushnu Shmaim Lacholivim Besos Shachal Yisrael Refuas HaNefesh Refuas HaGuf Hashtag Zman Karev Venoma Amen. Thank you everyone for joining us. Wishing you all well. Please God, we'll see you tomorrow for the next in our edition. Have a great day. Keep safe, keep well. All the very best.